I am sitting here today having a call with Dr. Ghiselle Panafleck, and she is an amazing medical doctor who is now focusing on perimenopause and menopause with her approach, which is conscious perimenopause. She is going to be doing a bi-weekly conscious perimenopause cafe. And the reason for this chat is to find out a little bit more about the cafe and the reason that she will be running this. So, welcome, Dr. Ghiselle.
Thank you very much, Nicolette. You have me blushing a little bit every time someone introduces me. Something very weird happens in my body. The feeling you go, "Ah!"
Is that really
uh,
me? Is that really
yes.
what they're talking
Who
about?
is Dr. Ghiselle Panderfleck? Where is she? Where's she at?
Imposter syndrome we all have.
Yes. Thank you for having me here. I think this is the right spot for conscious perimenopause for me to share because it's kind of like a new concept that I've created to first serve me because I was lost in my perimenopause years, and going through perimenopause consciously has transformed my life.
It's funny how much of what we do is actually from our core and what we need ourselves. I realize that so much with new products I create or even with Womanship itself. So tell us a little bit more about your perimenopause journey and what conscious perimenopause actually means.
So, the first piece of experience when it comes to perimenopause is that I was completely unconscious about the fact that I was going through perimenopause. That was the first part, right? I was 40, experiencing all of the symptoms, the brain fog, the not being able to concentrate, the getting home at night after work and thinking, did I go through the red light or not? What happened? How did I get here? Or driving to work and forget to take my kids to daycare. And they're sitting in the back of the car as I'm getting out, thinking, Mom, I think we missed a stop. So I was having all of those symptoms while doing my job as a GP here in the Netherlands. So the hustle was there, but the body was not working with the hustle and having all of the diagnoses that all of the women have, like burnout, depression, even got prescribed antidepressant. So completely unconscious about the fact that this is perimenopause. And mind you, back then, 10 years ago, perimenopause has not made it mainstream. It's only the last 2 to 3 years that the term perimenopause has been added to the guidelines. So I didn't know, my colleagues didn't know, no one knew what was happening. And the idea was, well, you're probably stressed, maybe you should do yoga, which I did. I did the yoga thing. I did the yoga thing so much that I got my certification as a yoga trainer. So I did the thing, but still was not working, right?
And it's
So I
amazing that as a doctor, that even as a doctor with theoretically some training around this, that you and your colleagues really didn't know what was going on.
the important part of what you're saying is some training. Because first of all, the training when it comes to women's health is kind of like a byproduct. And most of the trainings that I've received about women's health has to do with the reproductive part and not with the part of what we see in medical world as malfunctioning or decaying. I still struggle with the part that perimenopause and menopause is being framed in a sense of ovaries malfunctioning, as if they were supposed to function in this way for the rest of our life. Can you imagine me being 70 and still thinking, oh, I need a prescription so I don't get pregnant? That would be crazy, right? So there's not a malfunctioning according to conscious perimenopause. There is a transitioning, yes, and that transitioning may need medical attention, but it's not a malfunctioning. And I think reframing that is probably the first part of going through perimenopause, that women embrace this sacred transition as a transitioning, that will take care of a lot of unnecessary cortisol levels that we are adding because we are afraid, anxious, because, oh, what is happening? Everything is going bad. So I think that will be a very first step to start. But I also understand that the medical world is looking at it from a different point of view.
That's
Um,
really interesting that it feels like we are only made to feel valuable when we are in this reproductive phase by society. So it's really interesting that you're a medical doctor, and I know that we can talk about the medical side and the drugs and the hormones and everything else that we can be prescribed. And as you said earlier, the exercise, all the things we know, we've always needed to get good sleep. We've always needed to exercise. We've always needed to eat well. We may have to change it for this time of our life a little, but actually getting to the frame where, as you said, if we're more conscious about the phase that we're in and we start shutting out external societal pressures of this age to always look young, to always be fertile, the image of the maiden, that is actually the first step of, I guess, thriving through this period of our life.
yes, exactly. And it has a history, right? Because the history, right, was the medical setting was you have men and women was kind of like men was the default and the women was like the complicated version of men. So everything that had to do with women became complicated, atypical, and all of the other stuff. And then what would be the use of such a complicated creature to walk around this earth? Oh, they can make babies, so okay, we'll tolerate it. And then when you remove that part of the reproduction not being there, now we're like, okay, so okay, then it was nice having you here. And but that is, I want to also say that that is not the same in all cultures, right? So there are cultures that honor this transition the way that matches the way that I honor this transition. And I honor it in a way that, yes, my ovaries are not producing the estrogen that I would want them to continue to produce, but it's also a reason behind it. There's also a transition and maybe even a thank you for being here as part of the planet and contributing to reproduction. But now you get to do something else. And you know what? The invitation is you can do whatever the heck you want. So that is how I see this transition for myself. And that is also how I meet the women in conversation in conscious perimenopause. The invitation is, hey, you know what? This is the new phase. So if you would create it, if you would prescribe it, if you would design it, how would it be? And that freedom is a freedom that you have. But the transition perimenopause from being reproductive to postmenopause, that's a challenging transition. And I think the right guidance is key in that transition. And that is then conscious perimenopause.
And it's really interesting because it brings together two important things that I think women need: the medical side, the hormones. Obviously, it's each individual woman's choice, but there is a lot of research we know that says yes, hormones can be very good for our longevity, for our brain power, for our bone health, as well as helping us through the symptoms. But the other side of things that doctors don't have and women then tend to get coaching for is this conscious transition bit. So you actually putting both together is really interesting in helping women not just achieve the well-being in terms of their body thriving, but also their mind thriving at the same time.
Yes. And I think I can explain something common and treatable like dry vaginal area, right? So a lot of women within perimenopause experience dry vaginal area.
I say that was the symptom that I think scared me the most when I read the
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
And I was like, when is that going to start? And literally, for the next X number of weeks or months before having sex, it would always be, is it going to be now? Is it going to be now? Is it going to be now? And,
Yes.
touch wood, it's not at a point where it's like, bad. But I hear women having it so badly and it not being treated
Yeah,
because
but I
it's like,
know
"You're
because it's a
not."
very triggering, symptoms. Because women, if they would like have to bet on which symptoms of perimenopause they would want or not, dry vagina will not be one of them, right? Okay, let's do the belly fat. Okay, I will take that. But please not the dry vaginal area, right? So I completely understand how triggering that can be. But that is also why I use it in most of my analogies because I know I get everybody's attention. Even the men are like, wait a second, is it going to go dry? When? What? How? And what are the implications for me?
When they get worried, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
What's
right.
the implication for me?
Yes, 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 yes. So even with dry vagina, right? There are, you know that there are three different sources of the dry vagina. And conscious perimenopause helps us navigate that. So you have the dry vaginal area because of estrogen, lower estrogen level, right? That's biology. What are your test results? Who checked it? When did we check it? And local estrogen will help that because of the lower estrogen level. But you also have dry vaginal area that is more linked to the sexual activity, and that is because of the testosterone level. Also biology, right? That you could also treat with local testosterone creams, but also you can stimulate that part with stimulation, so, using vibrators, actually having an active sexual activity, and here comes lifestyle, will help with that part. It won't help with the first part. With the first part that we discussed, the estrogen level, you need that estrogen to help with that part. But you also have a third source of the dry vaginal area that we see when women engage in sexual activity that doesn't have anything to do with the estrogen level or the testosterone level, but has to do with the nervous system. That a nervous system that is in fight or flight will not be in receiving mode to receive any type of touching. Actually, touching or stimulating will make it even worse. So then the source is more spiritual, more source based. There's more coaching, more conversation that needs to happen, more trauma informed conversation that needs to happen. So, as a doctor, me being able to see through my conversations with the clients and through the symptom tracking and through the testing, me be able to see what am I looking at and how we can go about treating it is so important. And that cannot happen in a 15 or 30-minute GP conversation. That has to happen within a conscious perimenopause system so that the help that I can offer the woman is more effective.
So we've touched on a couple of things that I wanted to dig into a little bit deeper. And the first one is this connection between, and it's the way I think of most things on womanship, that there is a physical aspect. If you break your leg, there's a physical aspect to it. Then you need recuperation and to help use that again. But there's also a spiritual and mind aspect in terms of not being able to do anything, to being in pain, to being mobile again, which is also a journey. So it's almost like everything we have is body, mind, and spirit related. So,
Exactly.
and very few practitioners look at all of those in one, as you say, conscious way to look at the whole package.
Yes, and it does have such a impact for the women if they are not conscious. So that's why I take the women from unconscious to conscious. Because even for the last part, as women, when we are unconscious and when we are going through the motions, like even with the sexual act, we can do the sexual act while watching the Bold and the Beautiful, right? Like do the thing because it all functions quite autonomically from us. Come in perimenopause and menopause, now the body is asking for presence. Now the body is asking for the he being in the here and the now. And that becomes a challenge because we haven't functioned in that way. So I get a lot of women that just want to go back to the way things used to be. And a lot of times I have to disappoint them and say, I don't know if I can do that. But what I can do is navigate how you can go towards the one you were supposed to be. And now we are combining biology, lifestyle, and spiritual work to create where you were supposed to be, which asks for some guidance, some mentorship, some medical assessment, some creams, some potions, some pills, some supplements. It asks for all of those. And me knowing where are we dialing is the thing that helps the woman, right?
So one
So
of the things that you have, and I'm currently going through with you, is the lifestyle tracker. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and how you help women from that perspective? Because I know that me having that kind of guidance and a little bit of a kick from you going, okay, have you filled this in? I need to know this. You need, and making it into a habit to track
yeah,
what we're doing is actually really useful because it sounds very simple, but tracking a lot of these things when you've already got a busy lifestyle, when you're already in a little bit of trauma because of perimenopause symptoms, when you're trying to make sure that you know who you are and everything else, this feels like one other thing on top of what you're doing. So you've made this very simple for women. Do you want to explain a little bit about how you do that?
yes. So the symptom tracker serves two people, right? So it serves, let's start with it serves me first, right? It serves me in the fact that I on the back end of it, I get to see patterns. I get to see things that the woman herself would not have seen. I get to see when it comes to maybe the dry vagina, where do we need to dial up or dial down? Because no woman comes to me completely blank. Some have HRT and are still struggling, some have other medications. I get to see, okay, what is happening. The other person that it serves is the woman herself. The first part of how it serves the women is it asks you to sit with you. And for the first part of filling it in, like maybe the morning, it takes 5 to 10 minutes. You probably scrolled longer than that.
Amen. I say amen. I mean, when you put it like that, women find it so hard to focus on
Yeah,
themselves. There's a real problem of spending that time and saying, I'm stepping out of everything that I'm doing
yes,
and just going to spend 5 minutes on me.
yes. And just finding words to how I'm feeling. I don't know how I'm feeling. And just being able to sit with you. I put some multiple choice words in there. I feel stressed, I feel calm, I feel a little bit, but just to be able to sit with you is the challenge, but it's also the solution. Because if we look at the spiritual part to where you are going, how can we know where you need to go if we don't know where you are at right now? So it creates a bigger picture of yourself for yourself. So that is the first part of how it serves you. The second part of how it serves you is that you start to see patterns. You start to see the every time this, then that. And then you become more conscious of the different dials that you get to turn. The goal of conscious perimenopause is that at one point you won't need me because you will be the one being able to listen to your body as a guide, as a sign. But now we are not there yet. And it's hard to be there because we have been taught from 12-year-old or even younger. You're on your period, take two paracetamol and go to physical class, right? You get that big old cramp in your belly whenever maybe you're ovulating or at the start of your menstruation. You just hold it in, let nobody see. So we have been so conditioned to silence every part of our body. And then we go intuition. Intuition, what? There's no intuition. Intuition happens in the body, it shows in the body. And but we have been conditioned to silence it. So now I'm inviting with the symptom tracker to listen to your body because it's whispering. But when disease starts to happen, it starts shouting, right? And we want to catch it before it starts shouting. So that's how I work with the symptom tracker. And I also have some clients that also have the aura, that is the
Yeah.
ring that gives all of the information. And I like to work with both if we are going to do it, because a client said, well, if I have the aura, then I have all of the information. And on one hand, it's handy for me because then I can get all of the information, but it's not so effective for the woman because now a device is telling you that you're stressed, right?
Yeah.
It's saying you're stressed, and you're like, huh, I'm stressed. I don't know. Why am I stressed? Are you stressing me? So now something else is telling you how you are feeling.
It's really important, that bit, because as you say, it's about we have been disconnected from ourselves. We've been disconnected with what we've been through as women, and we've been told that actually it doesn't matter. Everything from, having cravings before your
Yeah.
period, just the whole cyclical living are links to the moon, but also in being able to sit and say to ourselves, I'm feeling tired and I'm just going to sit and rest, and understanding what that feels like. And I've had to learn that, which, amazes me that I thought I was pretty conscious in a lot of things. But with my burnout, I realized I wasn't listening to my body and what I needed. Understanding that sometimes my brain is just scrambled or that I have high energy. But unless I tell myself that, then, that whatever the stats say, it's gonna still be separate to me rather than me understanding myself and my moods and my emotions. And you think we put so much time into understanding that for our partners or our children, understanding how they're feeling, being able to read these signals, but we don't put that time into ourselves, which is insanely crazy.
And it's quite interesting. I have women that can tell me, and I could even do this, based on how their partner closes the door, they already know how the evening is going to go.
Yes. Yep, yep, yep. Yep, the
Nothing
honest,
have been shared.
brilliant.
That is how keen we are in sensing whatever is happening. But with our bodies, we just wanted to serve whatever we wanted to do. And that is a part that um yeah, that's challenging for a lot of women, especially the high functioning women that see me. It is a challenge to go from, okay, just fix me, to, well, actually, we're going to fix you together. And then they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I pay you to fix me. Yeah.
It's so interesting. And that term high functioning is something I want to stop on just for a moment, because I know that we as women find it hard to accept these terms. It wasn't until I was doing, and I know I'm mixing burnout and perimenopause, but there, there's collisions. I was doing a talk for a burnout conference, and the lady who was going to interview me had called it burnout in high functioning women. And I'm like, am I high functioning? And this is before I realized I was even in burnout.
Mhm.
So high functioning, I think, deserves a definition, because I think most women are high functioning because they are managing work, they are managing relationships, they are managing being caregivers, whether it's to children or to parents or to people around them. They are managing so much in life that I think most women, if not all women, fall into the high functioning category. So I'd love your perspective on that.
Yes, I truly believe that also. I think a woman in her 40s is covering a job that, if you would pay someone, you will have to pay 4 or 5 different people to do that job. And if she is a part-timer, she is probably getting paid half of one of those jobs. That's how they are functioning. Like you said, they are the CEO of their household, the CFO of their household, the psychologist of everyone in their households and friends. They have to take care of parents and kids.
They're the cleaner, probably. They're the majority shopper. They are the majority chef. The list
It's
goes.
and they're in perimenopause, their partner is in andropause, and the kids are in puberty. And their parents, yes, there's a collision of transitioning happening because also their parents are going through a transition of needing more care than before. So it's a collision of transitioning. And what I see with these women is the price of continuing to work in this way is on the body. Most women in the 40s and 50s that have a burnout diagnosis probably are going through perimenopause. Because
It's
80% of women go through perimenopause, and most women in perimenopause have burnout symptoms.
It's one of those things that I mentioned to so many women who I know in their 40s who have had amazing careers, really loved them, all those types of things, and then suddenly go, I can't do what I was going to do. Am I burning out? And my first response is often, are you in perimenopause? Please get checked by your
Yeah,
doctor and see a specialist, because that could be causing a lot of these symptoms that you think are, quote, burnout symptoms. There's so much
yes.
overlap.
And I think also with doctors that they are much more keener to recognize the symptoms as burnout than to recognize the symptoms as perimenopause symptoms
Yeah.
because it's relatively new, and a lot of doctors, even with all of the knowledge that we have today, because I feel like my feed on social media only talks about perimenopause, so according to me everybody knows about it, but for a lot of doctors the whole perimenopause menopause thing feels very vague. It feels like something that they can grasp, they cannot understand. So they go towards something that they feel more secure, more confident that they can assess and offer help with.
Yeah.
So then we land at burnout, we land at depression, even anxiety. So those are the things that doctors feel more confident that they would be able to offer the right help.
And it's
Um,
also so different for different women. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. If you break your leg, you break your leg. There's a physical thing. If you have a complete mental breakdown, that is something that can be seen. If you have a liver complaint, there's something malfunctioning there. But with perimenopause and so many symptoms, and even, I mean, I'm postmenopausal and I still have a range of symptoms that nobody's really talking about, because it's almost that we're led to believe you go through perimenopause, you have your menopause, and then you arrive at this new state. Postmenopause, I'm still experiencing all these things, and very few people are even talking about the symptoms women get in postmenopause.
Yes, yes, exactly. I'm also postmenopausal now. So perimenopause has my attention because I feel like I know it. Been there, done it. But the thing is, postmenopause, you will be there for the rest of your life.
If they told us these things as women, what we really had to go through, I think we would have slit our wrists a long time ago. I mean, you're going to go through this, you're going to go through the childcare thing, you're going to go through all these different things, your body changing. And then when you think you've got it all sorted, we're just going to turn everything upside down. And then it's going to continue potentially for the rest of your life. We
Yes,
just sit there going, what is the point?
I completely understand how you're feeling. But statistically, women after 50 are the happiest. Statistically. So there is hope. So mood wise and happiness wise, we it gets better after perimenopause. So I
Good.
think is this the transition that we need to navigate through? And I also think that how you navigate the transition is also key. Having the right guidance, dealing with the biology part, the lifestyle part, and the spiritual part will create more and more, the good stuff
Yeah.
after the perimenopause.
So, I want to touch on something very quickly, and we can dig into this at another time.
Yeah,
But the one thing that we haven't talked about is the testing that you do alongside this so that we bring
yeah,
together a whole picture. So, maybe you can just speak briefly to that so people get an understand of what you bring in from that aspect.
yes. So I love to work with Dutch testing. So we also do the serum testing is need if needed. But the thing is, when you do serum testing like blood tests to test your hormones in blood, there is not much information you're gonna get when it comes to perimenopause, because perimenopause is not a diagnosis that is based on a level of blood, a level of your hormones in your blood. It is a diagnosis that is based on your symptoms. Testing the hormones will also help me know how your hormones are being metabolized, especially the Dutch testing. So I love to work with the Dutch testing because the Dutch testing helps me navigate, okay, the estrogen level is low, but how is it being metabolized? You can have a lower estrogen level because of perimenopause and still have estrogen dominance because your estrogen level is not in the right balance with your progesterone. And that still needs a estrogen dominance attention. You can take progesterone for your perimenopausal symptoms, and when it's not being metabolized the right way into pregnenolone, allopregnolone, you can still not have the benefits of progesterone, which maybe you would get not by upping the dosage of progesterone, but maybe using it through a different um,
Absorption
yeah,
method.
yeah, absorption method. So you go from orally to anally or vaginally. So
Okay.
all of that information helps me navigate the biology part of
So,
the perimenopause.
I think we need to do a separate call just on the Dutch testing and what it can help you
Yeah.
see. Gosh, I've got so many questions about that. As a medical doctor, does it help you spot other areas of issues in women's health as well?
Yes. So the Dutch test, we test cortisol, DHEA, progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen. So it gives me all of those information. But what I also like to know during perimenopause is how is your insulin level? And also, how are your thyroid glands? Have they been tested? So, because we have like 50 hormones in our bodies, and we only know something about 7 to 8 hormones. And even those we don't assess as conventional doctors. That's why I love that I'm a functional doctor and that I've gone through that process of getting functional medicine training in order for me to understand not the conventional way of looking at hormones in finding diseases, but in assessing how the organ is functioning and assessing it that way. So, one of the things that we can find out is that your estrogen is not being metabolized right because your stool is not going the way that it has to go. So your microbiome is not functioning the way that it's supposed to function, which is causing your estrogen level, and especially that estrogen that we do not like very much, to be way too high in your body. And that is also causing symptoms. So all of that information can come from the Dutch testing. And that makes us look at the whole perimenopause thing a little bit broader than just HRT, so just give hormone replacement. Let's look at the bigger picture before we go towards the HRT, which I truly believe every woman should have a conversation about HRT. We have research that is showing that maybe HRT is not only for symptoms, but also for longevity. So it might be, I cannot look into the future, but it might be that in 2 to 3 years, the guidelines would say women between 45 and 55 should all be on HRT. I don't know, but the research is going towards that way. Yeah, so that I don't know how that is gonna go, but the Dutch test helps us look at the whole picture in a much broader setting.
Okay, so we're definitely going to have a call and dive further into that one. So now I want to move on to what you're setting up with the Conscious Perimenopause Cafe on Womanship. This is going to be a bi-weekly
Yes.
drop-in call. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you're going to be offering the women who come in so that, yeah, women can thrive through this period. So do you want to tell
Yes.
us a little bit more about your plans?
Yes. So what I wanted to offer women is just a safe space to ask questions. I mean, I can go live on the socials, but then it's all in the open. But in these cafes, it's more intimate, a smaller group, and then the women can ask questions when it comes perimenopause. Just like you asked today, they can ask personal questions, but they can also ask for a friend. And I will just share my wisdom with the women and help them navigate this space of transition and also debunk some of the myths that are out there so that they can start having a more conscious awareness of what they are going through and also make conscious decisions on what do they need, who do they need it from, and how do they want to go through this transition.
One of the really important things that we've seen from the Burnout Cafe, for example, or from other events that we've had with Womanship, it's about finding other people who are in that same space as you are and realizing that you're not alone. I think a lot of the things we go through feel very only me. I'm the only person having this symptom. The symptom I'm having is unusual. No one else is talking about it. And I think finding other people who either understand that from your perspective as a doctor or who are going through this as a woman actually provides incredible support to help women realize they're not alone.
Yes, exactly. Because a lot of women suffer alone. I mean, the hot flashes makes it way to the dining tables and the cocktails, but all of the other symptoms like the dry vaginal area, bodily odor, struggling with weight, decreased libido, feeling like you can show up in your business or in your career like you used to, those not so much. And a lot of women suffer alone. So this cafe is indeed also a safe space to offer a community that women can say, hey, okay, I'm not alone. This is common and there is help.
So the Perimenopause Cafe is going to take place every other Monday
Yeah.
at 12:30. I think it's really good that we're going to start it now
Yes.
and run into the autumn with it, and potentially even do some face to face as well in Amsterdam.
Yes, and the ladies are welcome to join in and they can just sit with their camera off and they can come in and be with their camera on. They can ask questions, they can just listen, they can do it while they're doing their lunch walk. If they're on this side of the hemisphere, or the evening walks if they're on the other side of the planet. So, yeah,
You
feel
mentioned
free.
something important that people can submit questions to you
Yes,
beforehand
yeah,
anonymously so
yeah,
that you can actually answer their question
yes.
during the call without actually referring to any individuals.
That is a
So
good one. Let's reiterate that. So they can go on my page on WhatsApp and they can add the questions and yes, I will answer them.
and we also have something exciting coming up in terms of a specific conscious perimenopause group within womanship. But I'm going to leave that one as a teaser and we can talk about that next time.
I'm excited to to share that with the ladies also.
Fabulous. Thank you so for chatting with me today. We're going to do more of these conversations till we can dig deeper into certain areas that are questions in women's minds in this really interesting period of time. I really hope that you've enjoyed listening to this conversation and finding out a little bit more about Dr. Ghiselle and her conscious perimenopause approach, which is something I think is really refreshing and something that really helps women through this phase of their life.
Thank you for having me, Nicolette. And I look forward to the bi weekly meetings and having real conversations with women.